Hello, my Greek Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the My Greek Island podcast with your hosts, George Tsunias
and Maria Petraku.
And you might think it sounds a bit noisier than usual, and that's because we are recording this intro from the island of Astypalaia.
Anyway, now we're back in London and the weather's not as good as it was in Astypalaia. Now, we know you amused you a lot this year during our trip to the island of Astypalaia, so here comes our dedicated episode to this beautiful island to give you all the ins and outs you're going to need to know when you decide to visit it.
For those of you that are following us on Instagram, that you actually voted us to go to, because it was between Crete and Astypalaia. We were indecisive. We gave it out to our followers and they voted for Astypalaia. So here we are to tell you all about our experience.
Yes, you did indeed vote for us to go there, and we're actually really glad because we had an absolute blast. And those of you that follow us would have seen it. So maybe, George, we should have this annual thing where we give our followers options to vote from to, because I was quite indecisive this year and they can decide where we're going to go.
Mm-hmm. You were, really, really were. So maybe we should. Who knows? We'll see. There's quite a few options on the table for next year already. So I feel like we're going to be indecisive once again. But to be able to vote which island you want us to go to, you're going to have to be following us on Instagram. So if you're not following us already on Instagram at My Greek Island, you might be a TikToker. So head over to TikTok, or you can visit the website. So make sure you check all those out. And the handles for Instagram and TikTok, as you all know, it's at My Greek Island.
And also, please give us a rating or review. And also, maybe send over your request. Quite a few followers have done so in the past and they got their dedicated episode, so maybe you will too. But please give a rating, review, share. It does help us reach more people on the platforms, but also keep coming back with more content.
It does. And we love seeing your comments. And sometimes we get people DM us with what Greek things they've made, or asking for some tips. And it's all pretty fun.
And I think my favorite lately was the one where someone baked, I think, an orange pie and sent us a picture.
Yeah, the orange pie.
That was brilliant.
Yes, we love that. Yes. Shame we couldn't have had a piece of that. Let's get into... Should we just get into it?
Let's get
into today's episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the My Greek Island podcast, dedicated to take you, the wanderlust, on a journey through Greece.
There are 227 inhabited Greek islands. Which one will you visit next?
My Greek Island, with your hosts George and Maria.
So as we said, today it's all about the island that you chose for us to go to, Astypalaia. So it shouldn't be the first time you've heard of it, not only on Instagram, but we also discussed it on another podcast episode on the top 5 islands for 2023. So you might think, oh, this island sounds a bit familiar. This island is often referred to as the butterfly of the Aegean because it looks a bit like a butterfly. Very, very cute. It belonged to the Dodecanese cluster, Dodecanisa, like Karpathos, which we've talked about endlessly. It's also in part of the region where you find Rhodes, which you might be more aware of. Although location-wise, and possibly, I think, architecturally, it does feel in parts to be more like the Kyklades, the Cyclades. So yeah, and a fun fact, you might see the... It's a language fact. So you might see the island being spelled Astypalaia at the end with an AIA or EA. So some of you will see the variety of spelling. And that's because in Greek, the AI, so it's not AI in Greek, but that's how it looks in Latin characters, is actually pronounced e. So Astypalaia. It's not Astypalaia, it's Astypalaia. So some sites write it with an AI towards the end, and other sites write it with EA. So I hope that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
quite confusing doing on a podcast without visual representation.
Although
But there
in
you
the
go.
Greek language, it is written with the corresponding Latin characters of AI.
It is.
Yeah, but I
Mhm.
guess that
Which is the sound
sound-wise, if you were to write it in English, it's an E. But yeah, and it's interesting that the AI has been
But
adopted.
it's not Astypalaia,
Yeah.
it's Astypalaia. Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah. So we're gonna get into how we got there, because it isn't the easiest island to reach, to be fair, and I think that's one of its charms, because it is off the beaten track. So let's talk about how we got there. Maria, would you like to talk us through this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's two ways that you can reach the island, and these two ways don't usually exist for all islands. So, Astypalaia has an airport, which for an island of such size is not as common, I would say. You usually get the bigger islands that have airports, but you do have some smaller islands that do have domestic airports, for example, like Kythira. So Astypalaia is one of those islands that has an airport. However, it's so small that it cannot accommodate any type of aircraft other than a small plane. And I think it's about 50 people that can get onto that plane approximately.
Very small.
It's very small. And they fly directly from Athens, and the flight lasts about 40 to 50 minutes. We opted to fly. It was a bit of an experience for George rather than myself, because I've been on a small plane before. I don't know, George, was it your first time on a small plane?
Actually, I don't know. Anyone would have thought it was my first time. You were like holding my hand on the plane. I think because it was windy, but I think the reason I was really, really stressed, I had a heightened stress, because I'm going to provide some background and I'm going to expose you a bit here. But when we were going to the airport, Maria was like, I will pick you up. We'll go to the airport. We're not going to go like the usual 2 or 3 hours before. We can just rock up 1 hour before and get there. As we were dropping off the car hire, we had to wait a long time for the car hire, one thing and another. We were basically running through the terminal. And actually, it was Maria that was getting stressed and like, oh, are we going to make it? And obviously we did. But I was already stressed, because like, if Maria's getting stressed, she told me not to stress, but now I'm getting stressed. So I think I had a heightened sense of like, anxiety before
I think
the flight.
my stress level
yeah.
was a bit higher because we were flying with an airline that I'd never flown with before, and because I tend to, I mean, I'm exposing myself now and probably going to sound like a bit of a princess. And I know that Joe, if you're listening, I know that you're a bit of a princess as well. We've got a follower who shares my airline princess passion.
Fair.
I usually only fly with two airlines, which I'm frequent flyers with. So I get like priority boarding and fast tracks on the on security. And because we didn't have that, I knew, and I could see the amount of people in the airport. I was just scared that there was going to be a long queue that we couldn't skip, and was regretting proposing to you to go late to the airport and just, wing it. But yeah,
Exactly.
you did expose me. Anyway, thanks, Han.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on.
you're welcome.
If you don't choose to fly, the next option which you can get to practically all of the Greek islands, is to take a boat. And the boat leaves from the port of Piraeus. It's about 9 to 10 hours. So it is quite a long route. And those that choose the boat, it's not because it's cheaper. It's probably the cost is probably quite similar to the flight, to be honest.
Especially if you go with a car.
But you're going to choose that if you want to take your own car, or if you're island hopping nearby and it's convenient. So, for example, the route that goes to Astypalaia, and probably like one of the reasons why we were saying before that location-wise you might get confused that it belongs to the Cyclades. It's because the route actually does pass through islands of the Cyclades like Paros, Naxos, Donusa and Amorgos. So if you're on any of those islands, you can combine it with Astypalaia. I mean, it would be epic to combine Astypalaia with Amorgo, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we did pick up two people for a lift on our way back from one of the beaches one day, and they had just come from
yeah, they
Amorgos,
did,
and they were
yeah.
actually in the campsite.
were.
They were camping, so there were people that do camping in Astypalaia.
Yeah,
There
and
is a
that My
campsite,
Greek
so,
Islanders is an option we're never going to give you to choose from for us to go on holiday.
I still would like to go camping one day, but it might not be with you. Just to see what the vibe is like. Obviously, I'm the lesser of the princess because I like going back to the flight thing. I will take whichever airline is cheapest, guys. So, yeah. So let's
move on. So moving on, we're going to talk a bit about the vibe of the island. And if you haven't watched our first My Greek Island TikTok video, I would encourage you to go over and watch it, where I actually asked George to describe Astypalaia in 3 words. So yes, people, we're also on TikTok. Slightly different content on there, so make sure you follow there too. So George, remind us, what 3 words did you choose when you described Astypalaia?
Yeah, so the 3 words that I chose, and they did come to my mind straight away, very unplanned. It was one take, so what you see was just literally film and go. So the 3 words were authentic, unspoilt, and tranquil. And you did say 3 words, but I did have a 4th one, which I would like to add. And I would say that the island is not pretentious. So, I mean, that's 2 words, but it's non-pretentious as islands go. So, yeah, there was my 3, but I also put 4.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely the vibe. It's such a chilled island. There is a lot, there's quite enough, there's more than enough to do. It's not too loud, it's not too quiet, it's got enough people, but not big crowds. It's got quite a lot of options, it's not overwhelming. Everyone is super friendly. And it definitely doesn't take long to meet the locals and want to chat with them. So I think on my side, I would add to that friendly and also this community feel that you get from the island. So those are the 2, that would be my plug, my 2 cents on what George has already said. Although, to be fair, his 3-word summary was definitely spot on. And I mean, George, we were literally just chatting I guess towards the last couple of days, we were literally just chit-chatting constantly with the locals, and we actually felt part of that community, didn't we? And that's another part of the island.
Right at the end.
Yeah.
Building on the vibe of the island, maybe people are getting a sense of who it's for, but maybe we should be a bit more specific around who this island is for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you just need to see if that vibe really talks to you or not. If you're looking for more of a party scene, you're probably not going to find it in Astypalaia, late nights, etc. You're going to find a more laid back type of vibe. But it's the good thing though is that if that is your kind of vibe, it is perfectly suitable for many types of visitors. You can go as a couple, you can go as friend. The island is also quite accessible overall. So I'd gladly take my nephews there, which means that if you have small children, you can definitely take them, especially where we stayed the first 2 days by the beach. That would be perfect for someone with children, literally.
Oh, it's perfect.
You know, literally being on the beach. And then lastly, I would definitely add this island to a list of suitable islands for solo travelers. But given that the locals are just so chilled and super friendly, it's a great place for solo travel as well.
Yeah, and we did see quite a few solo travelers around, and they were blending in with kind of the local community. So, yeah, I think you said a few times that you'd like to go back there with your nephews, which would be quite fun. Little road trip around Astypalaia. So in terms of the accommodation, let's look at, we stayed in 2 locations. And the reason for this, usually we stay in one. Oh, actually, no, we don't. That's a lie, because in other islands we've moved around.
Have we?
Anyway, I retract that. In Karpathos, we stayed in like 2 or 3 because we were moving around.
Oh,
yeah.
Because we stayed on one side of the island. Yeah, true.
Yeah, but the reason we decided to stay in 2 is because we decided to extend our stay from 5 to 7 days. Clearly, Maria pushed for that, and I'm really glad that she did because, well, we still didn't get enough of the island, but it was good to try the two different types of accommodation.
Yeah.
So well done for pushing.
Yeah, but you definitely don't regret it, right? I mean, it was great to
God.
extend, but also stay in two places. And I actually wish that we'd stayed in a third as well.
Yeah. Maybe we should consider that next year, like move around the accommodations a bit. So the first place we stayed in was in Livadia, which is the beach area as well, near to Hora. It's right on the beach, so it's really great for those early risers or anyone that wants to be right next to the beach, because you literally wake up and you can dip in the sea first thing. I think you sent out the drone to look for me at like 7 a.m. It was just myself and some of the, older residents of the island.
Where's Wally? I think your mum loved that
Yeah,
one.
where's Wally? Probably looking at us like, what are they doing up so early? But it's the best. Golden hour at night and 7 a.m. in the morning. It's like perfect to start your day. So, yeah, and I think my mum loved the Where's Wally reference.
So effectively, I was sitting on the balcony on our room. George was in the beach, and I literally sent the drone looking for him and took some videos. So if you had seen the videos on Instagram, the one where I'm actually zooming out from him diving into the sea, I was actually not on the beach. I was sitting quite far away, but managed to find him. Anyway, moving on. The second place that we stayed in was Hora, where we stayed in a really cool maisonette, and that's where George had a bubble bath and bossing me around like a little queen. But anyway,
I'm sorry, but can I just say, I need to say, the accommodation had a bath in the room, which I've never seen before. I've never stayed somewhere like that. So I was like, I have to take this opportunity to fill up the bubble bath and just sit there and live.
And it wasn't in the bathroom. It was literally in the middle of the room.
It was in the room. Although there was a bit of a flood after, which we were like mopping out and stuff. And we're like, oh God, maybe we shouldn't have had this. Maybe it was more for decoration, but it was a good bath.
Yeah.
And lived the moment.
Mm-hmm. And then, so we've mentioned the two places. And if we were to stay in a third, which I mentioned previously that I would have loved to stay, is down by literally below Hora, which is down by the port. And that's where I was running. I was running from our accommodation in Hora to the port, where also there's a nice little beach and there's some restaurants and cafes, etc. So that would have been my third option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one to be considered by the port, and it's quite near quite a few like restaurants and bars, and also right next to the port, obviously. And I think the bus goes from the port as well, because I did see people waiting for some sort of bus, which segments onto the transportation of the island. You see what I did there? It was quite a smooth transition.
Mm-hmm.
We, of course, hired a car, and we picked that up from the airport, which was super convenient, super easy. And in my opinion, as with most places, it's best to have a car. But there are some other options as well. So, Maria, what do you think?
I think that what you're going to decide in Astypalaia needs a bit of analysis for people to make an informed decision. It really does depend. So we briefly touched on where we stayed and a potential third option. And the interesting thing is that all of these three places are actually within walking distance from each other. Some might say it's not an easy walk. I mean, one was super uphill. For example, from Livadia to Hora, it's 10 minutes, but it is super uphill, but definitely doable. And from the port to Hora, there are stairs, which on the way down are super easy. On the way up might be a bit tiring, but it's doable. Like it's not a long distance. So my point here is that you can go out at night if you're staying at any of these three spots and actually go between any of these three spots. So that could, depending on how long you want to spend on the island, how slow you want to take it. And the island is definitely worth taking slow, because slow tourism can be definitely very, very good for the soul and something that we need to be, looking into more. So based on that, you can survive without a car. However, you might ask me during the day, would you need a car? The answer is you'd need some type of transportation to get to the beaches, but it depends what you're willing to sacrifice and what not. Because, for example, option one, if you don't want to drive, you can. However, that might mean that you might not be able to reach all of the beaches, which we're going to touch on the beaches shortly, because there is an option called Astypalaia, which is kind of like an electric on-demand taxi, which you'll share with other people. And you can book this through an app, which is available on, I think it's available on all platforms. So it's available on Apple and Google Play. And this is actually part of a smart and sustainable initiative implemented by the island. And it was functioning when we were there. I mean, we were seeing it all the time. We didn't, however, use it.
Everywhere.
We did ask a few people and some of the locals how you use it. And apparently the island is split into zones, and the cost is dependent on from which and to which zone you will travel to. And everything just happens automatically through the app. I think you upload, you buy certain amounts of trips, and then you're ready to go. And this option is great for someone that doesn't want to drive, is not in a rush, and is willing to sacrifice some of the remote beaches or find alternative ways to get to those remote beaches.
Yeah. And I'd like to add here that I think we saw an indicative price. I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't extortionate. It seemed a reasonable price to use the Asti bus. So it wasn't something that is going to cost you a lot of money. I thought it was quite reasonable for the distances.
Yeah,
so,
it was reasonable prices. And when you put it down, I mean, you're not going to be moving around much at night. You're going to be moving around more during the day. And I think there's also a bus, but I didn't think we saw the bus. We saw bus stops. Personally, I didn't see a bus.
Yeah, I saw people queuing for a bus, but by the ports. But I'm not 100% sure the timetables and stuff. But
so
pretty sure there is one.
So if this the option of the Asti bus doesn't work for you, and you do want to explore the island more, then the second option is actually having your own car rental, and that can be anything from the fleet. There is a fleet of electric cars from the initiative Asti Go, which I think includes electronic cars, e-scooters, and e-bikes. And from what we understood when we were talking with the locals, the fleet actually I've lost the word. Like the car rental companies on the island will alternate between them with this fleet. It's not just one person that
they share the fleet, so everyone gets a cut of the pie, basically,
exactly.
from what we understood.
And but currently the island is not fully electric, so you still do have many non-E options on the island, and that's what we actually went with, because we weren't given this option when we were looking for a rental car. So I mean, next time we should probably try some of the Astigo options. Having your own car does allow you to explore many beaches that you wouldn't be able to access unless you had your own car. And as I said, we'll touch on that shortly. But I do want to caveat a few things, that some of the roads are not the easiest, and we will talk about them when we talk about specific beaches on the island. But then there's also a bit of a funny thing about the road network, which you should bear in mind. So number one, from Chora to Livadia, there's two roads. One is is the one that we were walking up, which we said was very steep. And if you don't prefer that to drive, there is a road that goes all the way around, but it's a bit of a longer route, but it's an easier route. And the reason I'm mentioning is this because if you're going up the hill with a car and anyone cuts you off, which happened to us, someone on a motorbike thought it would be fun to stop and start chit-chatting with the car, and they cut off the road for us and we couldn't go up. Now, there was cars behind us, so you have to be a very experienced driver with a stick in order to be able to get up that hill without your car going back. So that was a bit frustrating. And the person on the motorbike did not understand what the problem was. They were just like, just leave us alone. We just wanted to chit chat, take a break, take a chill pill. So bear that in mind. It can happen. So you might want to choose the road that goes around. And then the second one is like from Chora to the port. It's really funny because on the way down from Chora to the port, there's a one-way road, which is super quick. And gets you down within a few seconds. But then on the way back, you have to come all the way around because you can't come up that road because it's a one-way street. So the reason I'm mentioning this is that if you're on that one-way road and you're looking for parking, as soon as you find parking, park. Because if you keep going down and you don't find parking, you have to go all the way
have to go
around to come back and start looking for parking again. So just bear that in mind. Right, should we move on to the beaches? I think I've been talking way too much and should hand over to you for a bit.
On the topic of beaches, I think one of the things to bear in mind, and we claim this as well, is on the surface of it, I don't think we appreciated how many different beach options there were. I think doing our research before, we were like, oh yeah, 5-6 beaches. And when we arrived and started to look a bit more, we were like, yep.
There's just so many.
It needs more than 5 days.
There's just so many.
There is so many. And there are, organized, unorganized options.
Yeah, there's just so many beaches. And I would probably add that there are options for all tastes as well. Some more accessible than others. Some you can even reach on foot, depending on where you stay. Others by local bus or e-bus. And then, as we said before, others you will need your own transportation. So, George, which one are you going to kick off with?
Yeah, well, before I kick off, I mean, we mainly went we went to a mix, but we had your great little tent, which we set up everywhere we went. It was absolutely perfect for those afternoon siestas, and it was quite a small little tent that you put up really easily, so we could take it everywhere. So we weren't worried about shade.
We both
it fits in your hand luggage. It fits in the hand luggage, so it's small in that sense.
Oh, when you fold it up, you mean?
Yeah, when you fold it up. Sorry, I meant like small, like to carry around. But when you open it up, it fits 2 or 3 people easily.
I think that was my best purchase for this summer. I bought it when I went to dinners with the kids, so that if we got to a point where we didn't have any shade, they could be under this little tent and be playing. And it was such a brilliant. It's so easy to get up as well.
It is, really is. So the first area we're going to look at is Area 1, which we've named it. It's the area close to the airport, where the village of Maltesana is located. So here we have Maltesana Beach, we have Blue Harbour, and we also have Blagues. Now, while Maltesana has organised parts, the other two are quite unorganised. So Maltesana as well has quite a few restaurants. There is some places for food. It's right on the beach. We didn't actually go swimming there, although we went there one afternoon for some sweet treats. But the 2 beaches we did visit is Blue Harbour, which in Greek is Ble Limanaki. It's a very, very small bay. It's easy to get to with a short walk down some rocks. However, as it is so small and is generally protected from the wind, it fills up very, very quickly. So the top tip here is you need to channel your inner Georgian Maria, get up early and be there by 9 a.m. Because I think by 10 a.m. people are like probably going, like they come down, they're like, oh, there's no room, or they like literally sit on your lap.
Yeah, they managed to find room. There will be no room, but they will manage to put.
But you might feel like I don't want to sit on someone's lap, literally. So I might.
I think towards the end, I felt like, we left because I felt that people literally just sitting on us. So
yeah, the second beach is get there early. Yeah, the second beach is Blagues. So there's 2 bays here. You park on the street or on the road, and it's a short walk down. We did take some great pictures in the little caves on the second bay, and I can't remember. If they're not, they should be on Instagram. If they're not, we'll get them on Instagram so you can see. We had a little photo shoot there, which is pretty cute.
Well, that's more work for me, my Greek island. This is literally
exactly. So now I've committed you to it. And both of these beaches are protected by the winds. So this is a top tip. If it is a windy day, which it most likely will be on some of the days that you're there, ask the locals which beach they would recommend you to go to, because it will really help. Because unless you're going surfing, which they don't really have, I don't think, you don't want to be on a windy beach, because the experience is not the same as being in a nice little secluded harbour or no wind. So yeah, that's my part of Area 1. Should we move on to the next part?
So the next part is effectively the middle of the island, where the island gets narrow, which effectively we were to look at the island where we say it's a butterfly shape. It's in the middle where the body of the butterfly is between the wings. And there you have steno and mikro steno. Mikro meaning small. So you've got steno and small steno effectively. Both of these beaches are visible from the road on your way from Maltesana to Hora. They're partially organized, and apparently the two, I think they're like canteens, are really, really nice to have like a very laid back meal. And it's not like snacks, it's like a proper meal of like Greek cuisine. And we didn't eat there, but many people were saying that you can have a nice laid back beach, you know, like nice Greek salad and stuff like that. And then as you leave that part of the island, you're moving on to the main part of the island, which is Hora and Livadia and the port. And there you have the beaches, Astypalaia's beach, which is down by the port, Magazagia, which we didn't get to go to, but apparently is a bit of a secluded beach, which the locals go to, which is between the port and Hora. Livadia, where we stayed, and is the big beachfront where we stayed in the first accommodation, and Zanagia, which again we didn't go to, but we could see it from the road when we would go to other beaches. Most of these beaches are partially organized, and as we said, Paralia Livadi is where we stayed, and there's loads of restaurants on the beachfront, not super busy, like quite chilled and relaxed restaurants. And we love this for early mornings, and you can get a great view of Hora from this beach.
Yeah. The next area is probably one of my favorite beaches on this area of the island. It's the southwest region where we have Agios Konstantinos, Agios Ioannis, Vatses, and Kaminakia. Now, the note here is these beaches are all accessible via a dirt road. Now, accessible. All beaches can be reached, but you do need a good driver or someone like Maria to drive you around. For example, if I was there and I was the driver, I am not sure I would attempt these beaches. Not saying that they're not accessible.
You would have attempted definitely some of them.
Paralia Vadzes, I would have attempted this one. So the first one.
And Agios Konstantinos is quite easy to get to as well. I think it's just Kaminagia. Kaminagia was the one that was a bit tricky. And Vatses at some point was quite narrow. So it was doable.
Yeah, I would have got scared. So Paralia Vadzes, you have the mountain on either side, where we also tried to find the cave. So there's a cave on the mountainside, but you need to go with a guide because we tried, we failed, and it was very hot. It was actually quite windy that day, so that was quite good for, cooling down. It's a very, very nice beach. There is a cafe there, and there's also lots of trees. So we put our tent under the tree, and we still managed to be in the sun and had to move it further back. The second beach, which is probably my favorite, is Kaminakia. It's half sand, half pebble beach. There is a cafe with service on the beach, which was great. And this beach also has a cave that you can swim to just 50 meters out from the beach. And it's very, very nice for pictures, very easy to get to for everyone. And one thing that we didn't do on this holiday, and I should have done, and I will do next year, is take goggles to snorkel because there's so much to see. I mean, I had to watch it all back on the GoPro. So, yeah, I do wish I had goggles to kind of see what was going on underneath. Yeah, and you loved that one as well.
I did. I didn't like the swim back from the cave because it got a bit
You
windy.
didn't like the swim back. Yeah, there was a bit of a current and it was a bit wavy, but it was fine. It's 50 meters. We were together. I would have saved you.
We were together. You were swimming off, as you always do.
Yeah, I was trying to get content for the GoPro and for TikTok. So the next one is Agios Konstantinos, which what I really liked about this one, it has views directly of Hora, so it's perfect for a nice little picture. We had a lovely siesta again under the trees. There is also some restaurants or tavernas on the beachfront, and generally the road here is very, very accessible. And lastly, there's the beach of Agios Ioannis, which we didn't visit, and it does seem to require a trek to go down and is unorganized. Now, I don't know why we didn't visit it because like trek, unorganized, and a bit of an adventure is right up our streets. But it probably goes back to what we said of not appreciating how much there was to do. So, yeah,
I think by the time we were thinking of doing that one, it was windy, and that's why we chose to go to some of the other beaches. But yeah, there's just so many beaches. And the ones that we've touched on are all kind of the south part of the island. We actually didn't attempt to visit any any of the beaches on the north parts of the island.
No.
We heard that some visitors enjoyed some of the secluded beaches on the northwest side, but that they were not easy to reach. So we didn't actually attempt it. But yeah, I mean, I'm still impressed how many different beach options this island offers.
Yeah. Okay, so I think let's talk about the activities that we got up to on the island.
Or not. Sorry, my Greek Islanders. We need to split this episode into 2 parts because we had so much to say. Now make sure you tune in for part 2 of the Astypalaia episode, where we will touch on the activities, food and drink, our top highlights when we visited the island, and also some snippets from interviews with some local heroes that we cannot wait for you to meet. So make sure not to miss part 2. Until then, thank you for listening and see you on the next episode.
Right, my Greek Islanders, this comes to the end of another episode of this podcast.
Now you know the drill. If you like this episode, share it to share the love with the My Greek Island community, where everyone is welcome. And
Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, and all that jazz. And maybe give us a little rating from wherever you're listening to us from, so you are notified every time a new episode drops. And if you have any suggestions or requests, get in touch.
And for those of you visiting Greece, don't forget to tag @MyGreekIsland on Instagram for a future feature. Until then, see you later, or as they say in Greek,
Ta leme.